Good morning, good morning. Hopefully, I'm live with you on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Good morning. It is 11:05 UK time. Thank you very much. If you are there live, let me know that you're there. Give me a hello. This is just an impromptu, I feel like I need to just keep the conversation going. Let's start a little bit. Let's get a camera sorted. Good morning, good morning. My signal's not looking great, but hopefully I'm not frozen and you can see me. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Hopefully we can have a little bit of a good conversation. But yes, so good morning. Let me make sure I've got my comments on anyway, and then we'll see where we go from there. I'm going to tag some of you into this conversation as well once it's finished, just so we can share. But as I said, today is Wednesday, the 23rd of July. You may or may not have seen that yesterday morning I was featured as part of a news piece on Good Morning Britain, arranged by the amazing Louisa Warrand. I hope I've pronounced your name right, Louisa. But I was part of a Good Morning Britain piece, along with two other amazing women, Rachel and Monica, interviewed by Vicky Pattison. And I don't know if I could get through this piece without crying my eyes out, but let's see. I was invited to Louisa had the producer that was part of this. Hey, all I can see is LinkedIn user in the comments. So give me a name. Sometimes your settings won't give me your name. So hi, lovely to see you. But yeah, if you are there, say hi. Let me know that you're there. So yeah, Louisa, I'd posted something on some Instagram feed, and Louisa had picked up on it and said, we're going to be interviewing some women from around the country. Would you be interested in sharing your story? And I think it's interesting when we think about sharing stories, right? Because even with the burnout stuff, like burnout is now everything that I do, right? Live it, eat it, breathe it, sleep it, research it, read it, study it. That's everything that I do all day, every day. And yet when I first started to tell my burnout story in 2014, I didn't really think anybody would be interested. It was something that came out of a session, like you need to start sharing your story. And so I did. And me sharing my story allowed more people to start to share theirs. And that's exactly what's happened yesterday. I'll be completely honest with you. The amount of comments and messages and emails and voice notes and questions and all sorts of stuff that came from yesterday, I was completely unprepared for. Thought I might get, I thought when I shared like, hey, I'm going to be on TV, I might get a few comments, but I was not expecting the amount of stories. And I'm looking at these stories and I'm hearing these stories and I'm reading these stories. And again, I know, right? Same with burnout. Me sharing my story, Rachel and Monica also sharing their story, Vicky sharing her story, is bringing all of these, like all of you forward. And it's really hard. I think in some cases, what makes it even harder is we do have the likes of LinkedIn that are literally limiting posts and comments and videos that are talking about women's health or just women in general. I may get banned from putting this video out there. Let's see, but we're being silenced and we're being limited. And again, some of the posts, some of the comments that I've seen this morning, I have still got hundreds of DMs on LinkedIn that I just haven't had time to respond to, or haven't had the energy to respond to. And I'm going to respond to every single one of you that has sent me a message, that has commented, that has wanted to share your story and your experience. But also, right, yesterday, in terms of yesterday's news piece, it was a short piece in terms of a bigger story. Amazing news that West Streeting has agreed to meet with Vicky. Fantastic. And yet there are clearly thousands of us that need to be heard, that need to have our stories told. I don't know how we do that, and I haven't got the answer for you today. But I also think like there's so much that we couldn't share yesterday. And we just need to be talking about this stuff. So I think it's all very well for us to do news pieces and to have the conversation when we see the posts. I also know that many of us are still like living in silence, suffering in silence. And I see this with burnout, right? So a couple of months ago, I asked for burnout stories for a book that I want to put out later this year called Burnout Ends Here. You may have seen, you see them here, my two specific burnout books. And how can I do even more this year to spread more of the stories, to get more stories out there, to share more people's experiences? And I had more people message me to say, I'd love to be able to share my story, but I can't, either because of shame or guilt or NDAs, or can't let my employer know, don't want my family to know what I went through. So I received more messages from people saying, I'd love to contribute, but I can't, than I actually received final chapters for the story. And that's related to burnout. And the stats are telling us, right, more than 70% of the workforce at the moment are close to or on the brink of burnout or have experienced it. And we've still got thousands of people, right, that don't feel that they can share their story. And I think when it comes to women's health, and there are some amazing people out there doing some absolutely amazing work, and getting to talk about periods and to talk about women's health and to talk about adenomyosis and endometriosis, can't even find my words, adenomyosis, endometriosis, PCOS, PMDD, like all of this stuff. There are some amazing people out there that are starting to, not even just starting, that are out there flying the flag. And yet for so many of us, we are still feeling that we have to hide in shame. And I think just seeing myself yesterday talking about the fact that I've been putting up with this crap for 34 years and I'm still waiting to be taken seriously. I'm still waiting for an operation. I'm still waiting for this horrible pain to stop. The fact that I've been dealing with this for 34 years just kills me. And I suppose what a lot of people don't see, right? My life has been pretty non-existent since last October. I have had days, and some of my friends will know this, I have had days, and I've had to go back into therapy for this because otherwise I wouldn't be here. But I have had days where I've taken my youngest stepson to school and the pain has been so severe, I could have driven in front of a lorry on a slip road and just ended it all, right? That's where some of this has been for me since last October. Yesterday, I started to receive messages from dads and uncles and husbands and mums and nieces and friends and all sorts, right? This telling me about all of these different stories, telling me about their own experiences, telling me about this stuff. But the more that I kind of think back to it, I was shamed at 10 years old for having periods, like shamed at 10 years old. Right, I started my periods at 10 and I can still remember that first day, right? As terrified as I was, I started my periods at 10 years old. And I had to go, my mum had had a hysterectomy by that point. And like when I say like she gave me like these pads to wear, like they were like bloody nappies, right? And she's like, well, get you some sorted today, don't worry. And I went to school on that first day. My mum and dad had to like sent me with a letter to give to my teachers to say this is what's happened. And at 10 years old, of course, there were no like sanitary bins in any of the toilets, right? So I was told at 10 that in order then to use the toilets, I would need to be using teachers' toilets. But it was like a security pass to kind of get through the doors, right? So if I needed to go to the toilet, I had to ask a teacher permission to go to the teachers' toilets. But I was told by my teachers at 10 years old, I could not tell anybody why I was going to the toilet. Now, at 10 years old, when you're the only one in your primary school, right, that's got breasts and pubic hair and has now started periods, and you're being told, like, don't tell anybody where you're going, because we don't want to be having this conversation, right? We've not had the chat like where the boys get separated into one room and they get spoken about condoms, and girls get separated into another class, right? And we have to put tampons into like glasses of water, right? We hadn't had that chat at school yet. So it was basically like I wasn't allowed to mention it to anybody. I was not allowed, and I was specifically told at 10 years old I was not allowed to mention the word period in school. But all of these kids are asking, like, why do you keep going to the teachers? Like, what makes you, like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? So I remember having a conversation with this lad called Adam to say, I have started menstruating, right? Because I was specifically told, do not use the word period. I was then called into a room and had to sit down with 2 teachers because I had broken the rules and I had mentioned the word menstruation, that had then got other people like looking in dictionaries and encyclopedias to try and find what this word meant. I was told we are not having this conversation. That was at 10. The pain from that first period never stopped, right? Never, ever stopped. At 12, I was then put on the pill to try and regulate my periods. But I was, I was still told, like, this is normal. So you start to think it's normal. At 13, the pain had become so unbearable that I couldn't be at school every single time I had a bleed. I just couldn't do it because the pain was unbelievable. But my parents were then told that my attendance was not where it needed to be at school all of the time. So I just bought even more kind of industrial strength painkillers. That's the first time that I was then sent for a gynecology appointment, right? I'm 13 years old, seeing a gynecologist. And she tried to do the very, very first internal examination at 13 years old. Now, for those of us that have smears and all that sort of stuff, the little kind of plastic clamps that you use now, I'm talking like freezing cold metal clamp that she was trying to, kind of put inside to give me this first internal examination. The pain was horrific. Couldn't do it. Crying my eyes out. Mum's in the room with me. But this woman, this doctor, basically said to my mum, if you do not shut her up, we cannot do this. And I couldn't do it. So I was basically told we can't do anything with her. That's the 13. And then I'm being told at 13, can't have any time off, right? If you're living with this stuff, can't take any time off because it's affecting your attendance at school. So literally from 13, I have learned to deal with this pain. I'm not going to go into today like all of the horrificness of all of the stuff that I've had to deal with, but we still get told, right, this sort of talk is not relevant for the workplace, and it absolutely is. And I wrote a blog a few years ago now that was talking about my part, the part that I played in shaming women when I was an HR director, right? And I feel horrible for that. And when I say that I've shamed women, to be told at 13 it's just a period, you need to get on with it, and then you learn you just need to get on with it. And every single month, regardless of the pain, regardless of the fact that you cannot stand properly, regardless of the fact that your bleeds are so heavy that you're having to change everything that you need every hour, and still worrying about whether you're going to be leaving stains on chairs and buses and trains and all of that sort of stuff, and still feeling really self-conscious in meetings and classrooms and all of those sorts of moments. When I was then working in HR, we had a number of women who were experiencing really bad periods. And of course, my head had got was just a period, you need to get over it. And we were going through and we were basically told, in terms of what the bloody thing's called now, right? Bradford factor. If you get to these amount of absences, we then need to be performance managing these women. I performance manage women in my role in HR because I was told this is what it is that we need to do. I can also remember in my first couple of weeks as an HR director, I had been recruited into a new organization. And I remember one of my peers and I had an introductory meeting, and she rang me on the day of our first meeting to say, I can't come in today, I've got really bad period pain. And I can remember slamming that desk phone down in my office and being like, what do you mean you can't come into it? Like, it's a period. And I remember being really, really judgmental of her from that moment. Now, I have been part of that problem. And I think many others of us have also been part of that problem, not because we don't care, but because we have been shamed and blamed and made to feel guilty and like this excruciating pain that we feel every month that is normal. That's what we're told, right? It's normal. And then you experience ongoing pain every single month for years. And then at 32, you get told you need an endometrial ablation. You've got there's endometriosis, like basically eating inside of you. And you think, oh, that explains some of this stuff. And then you find out 12 years later, after that ablation, that you should never have had an ablation in the first place. Because the endometriosis had died. I do still have endo, and I have endo that's come up into my diaphragm. I have it in what's called a pouch of Douglas. Who knew that there was even a pouch of Douglas? But actually, the pain and the ongoing illnesses. So since that ablation in 2013, I have known that I have not been right, and I have been getting progressively more and more and more ill for 12 years, and I've been ignored. I have paid tens of thousands of pounds on private treatment, holistic treatments, you name it, I've done it, right? And I get some of the messages from some people in my DMs like, oh, you should try this. I've done it. When I say I've done everything, I've done everything. And then you go to speak to some doctors, and again, you get told it's all in your head, right? Clearly you're imagining it, right? We've done the operation. Maybe it's a bit of endo back. Maybe we need to do an additional ablation at some point. And then you find out this year, 12 years after being told, and I'll tell you a bit more about this in a moment, but 12 years after being told that you didn't need an MRI scan, when they eventually do the MRI scan, then they confirm it's adenomyosis, and then tell you that the ablation that you had in 2013, you should never have had, because if you give an ablation to somebody with adenomyosis, it makes your condition worse. So I feel like I've had 12 years of my life robbed, and since October, I've not wanted to be here. Genuinely not wanting to be here because the pain has been so unbearable. On the occasions where I've had to go to A&E and the morphine has not touched the pain, and yet I've still had doctors tell me, well, you look all right. You don't look like you've lost a lot of blood today. The fact that you've been able to walk into A&E today tells us that your pain isn't that bad, when actually you had an ambulance coming for you, but you got a call from the ambulance control to tell you that the ambulance was going to take too long. Was there anybody that could get you to hospital more urgently? And so your partner has driven you to hospital because that's the quickest way to get you to hospital. But then you get told because you walked in through the doors, you're probably not that ill. And is this crap that we cannot afford to keep ignoring? And for anybody that thinks this doesn't impact the workplace, it bloody well does. And this, since October, this hasn't just been impacting me. My partner has literally had to do everything in our house since October. He has been doing all of the housework. He has been doing all of the shopping. He has had to do loads of the childcare. He's had to literally run this house and continue to take on all of his work, because actually my earnings have been minimal since last October. I've done what I can. I've really scaled down. I've still delivered some of my Burnout Academy stuff. I've still done the coaching for a few clients when I can. But other than that, nothing. Not been on stages, not really been leaving the house, not been doing anything, because it's just been too unbearable. And so the additional toll on him of doing everything within the house. And I mean it because, like, by the time he comes home from work, I'm collapsed on the sofa most nights. This is impacting every single person in my household. It's impacting my sons, it's impacting my stepsons, it's impacting my partner, it's impacting my clients, it's impacting every single person. And yet we say it's not really a work issue. There's also, for all of us that live with this stuff, right, and the fact that many of us can't continue to work every single day, none of this stuff is classed as a disability. So there's no additional benefits that you can get. There's no additional money. You can't even get a bloody blue badge on your car, right, to say actually can't walk with any of this stuff, because none of it's classed as a disability, apart from the fact it's disabling and debilitating, and you can't move and you can't function and you can't think. We don't really do that. So many of the posts that I was seeing over the last couple of days, right, because we're still being told this is in our heads until then we have the operations, and they go, oh no, like you're riddled with whatever it is that's growing inside you, and then we're just supposed to be okay with that. We're not getting apologies, we're not being heard, we're not being seen. So in 2013, I was being rushed into hospital repeatedly. Now, lots of this, right, I was experiencing my burnout. You'll all know, right, my burnout created all of this pain and everything else that was going on. But on one of my hospital admittances, I was woken in the middle of the night to be given an internal examination by a doctor. And he said, we need to get you in for an urgent MRI in the morning. And in the morning, another doctor came and started talking to me about discharging me. I'm like, what about the MRI? We're not going to give you an MRI. What do you mean you're not going to give me an MRI? What about this examination that I had last night. Nobody admitted to doing this internal examination. Nobody even mentioned to me an MRI. Apparently didn't happen. Not in the notes anywhere, didn't happen. I was in an open room. Everybody else in that room heard that examination. Everything else heard what was said. Now, I was still working, right? If you've heard my burnout story, you'll know I was still working from my hospital bed. So I've got straight on. I'm emailing a complaint from my hospital bed to say, I had an internal examination that nobody, it's not in the notes. I need an MRI. And now you're talking about discharging me when we don't know what's wrong. Like, what the bloody hell's going on? We'll respond to your complaint in however many days it was. They didn't get a response by that day. I had to wait. It took 84 days to get a response to that complaint, by which time I'm so exhausted. I've already had the ablation. I'm thinking this is now where it's all going to go. But I was promised an MRI at that point in hospital. Even the times where I've paid thousands of pounds for all of these tests and told and asked about an MRI, I've been told you don't need an MRI. And then this year, having seen 2 consultants, the one consultant that gave me the MRI is like, yeah, this is it. Now, in December, when I was being tested, because they thought there might be cancer, they'd seen this shadow, I spent all Christmas waiting for a biopsy, thinking that there could be cancer. I then had the worst hysteroscopy, the most painful procedure in my entire life. I had to chase daily to find out if I had cancer because I was told you'll get the results in 7 days. And 6 weeks later, I'm still chasing. And then when I eventually speak to somebody on the phone who gives me the good news that you've got the all clear, my question was, if it's not that, what is it then? I don't know. We haven't really booked in a follow-up appointment, but they told me in December there's no signs of adenomyosis. We can't see any endo. So again, I was basically told it's all in my head. Take some of these pills. Didn't make the slightest bit of difference. The only other option then that I was given was you need to have this chemical menopause. Now, the chemical menopause does one or two things and can do so much more. But the 2 biggest side effects of this chemical menopause are weight gain and mental health issues. When I'm already feeling rock bottom because I don't need anything that's going to exacerbate mental health issues. And I had one consultant that literally shrugged at me and said, just get back to your GP and they'll give you some antidepressants. That was their answer. And I know that this is what so many of you are facing daily, because I've seen it in my comments and I've seen it in my messages and I've heard it in your voice messages. And we are still being ignored. We're still being ignored. And we're still being told that this stuff is in our heads. And we're still being told that our conditions are not that bad. And we're still being told that this debilitating pain that we are experiencing on a daily basis, we're still being told it's normal. And it's not. So I don't have an answer for you. I can't say this is what you do. I'm not an expert. You want to speak to me about burnout? I'll give you everything you need to know about burnout. Come train with me, come work with me, come coach with me, work with any of my coaches and director in burnout. I can help you with. This stuff I can't. But what I can do is promise every single one of you that I'm not staying quiet about this anymore. And none of the rest of us can either, because we cannot afford to continue to put up with this stuff. And I suppose in some ways I feel quite lucky, right? The fact that I've got 4 boys, my 2 sons and my 2 bonus sons, my stepsons. But I have 2 nieces, 3 nieces, and to think of them having to deal with the same crap that I have to deal with all of these generations later is just ridiculous. My mum had a hysterectomy, 34 or 36, and was told before that she was having a mental breakdown because of the experiences because of the way it was impacting her mentally and physically. My mum was given a hysterectomy. She's been okay since. My nan had the same issues. My nan was given electric shock treatment that changed her completely mentally. And actually what we think my nan was experiencing then was severe symptoms of menopause. But she was given electric shock treatment and basically told that was it. In 2011, when I kept fighting, because they wouldn't give me a hysterectomy. So then I was fighting to get sterilized. In 2011, not talking 1911, 2011, my then husband had to give permission for me to be sterilized. They wouldn't sterilize me at 31 without my husband's permission. And yet men can go to any clinic they want, get any kind of snip that they need, don't even have to tell wives, girlfriends, or any of that stuff that's happening. My husband had to give permission in 2011. We're talking 14 years ago in order for me to be sterilized, to at least try and minimize some of the symptoms that I was experiencing on a daily basis. And then we get told, and I saw some of the comments that I saw some of the comments that were on yesterday on the YouTube video to say that medical misogyny, it does not exist. And yes, it bloody well does. Katie's telling me my video is buffering. Sorry. It's telling me I've got full signal, so I have absolutely no idea, Katie. But we just can't stay silent on this stuff. Can't stay silent on this stuff. So that's my rant for this morning. So we just got to keep going, right? It's exhausting and it's horrible and we're being shamed and we're having all this stuff normalized and we're being told that we are the issue, that it's in our heads, that we're just not getting the talk, we're not getting the support, we're not getting what we need. So it's amazing news that Vicky has got this meeting with Wes Streeting. Amazing news, and it's one step. It's also, as far as I'm concerned, 34 years too late. And when I think about the stuff that my mum's had to deal with, when I think about what my nan had to live with, it's too late. Because for a lot of us, the damage has already been done, right? Whether it's been done mentally, physically, or emotionally, many of us, and again, I had the messages yesterday, some of you are actually living with PTSD as a result of some of the crap that you've had to endure, as a result of some of the procedures that you've been through and some of the things that you've been told by doctors, right? This is having a lasting impact on us. And so for anybody that wants to try and silence me and silence any of us that are having this conversation, it's not happening. If you don't want to hear it on a business platform because you don't think this is business related, we'll take the conversation elsewhere. But we are not going anywhere and we're not being silenced and we're not shutting up. The fact that we have to get out of bed just to keep on fighting, the fact that we have to struggle to get out of bed just to keep on fighting, when we should have the research, we should have the funding, and we should have the support to help us with this stuff, is just ridiculous. And I know that if we had the funding and the research, we wouldn't be living with this stuff anymore. We need more specialists. We need actual specialists that are trained in this stuff. We need to be heard. We need to be seen. We do not need ignoring when we're talking about our pain. We need employers. We need policies to be able to talk about this stuff. Right? I think it's Portugal yesterday announced that they are now providing endometrial leave. We've got countries that are providing actual leave for periods. This is the stuff that we need. This is the stuff that we need to allow us to have it, because we're not being shamed with this stuff anymore. And we're not going to continue to kill ourselves going into offices every single day just to prove that we're still capable of doing this job. It's not happening. I don't know if it's LinkedIn that keeps buffering me. My signal is telling me I'm fine. That's my rant for this morning. We've got to keep this conversation going. So please, right, share your stories. Keep sharing your stories and experiences. Still keep messaging, right? Keep messaging, tweeting, all of that stuff to Good Morning Britain, right? Get them to get your stories heard. I think the more that we have, the more hopefully Vicky can go and speak to Wes Streeting about, and we start to get this stuff done. But keep your stories coming, right? We're not being silenced on this stuff anymore. We're not. And we're not being shamed for it. And we're not going to be told that this isn't a workplace issue anymore, because it absolutely bloody well is. And so every single one of us needs to be posting about it, talking about it, having conversations about it. We have to keep this conversation going, because I know, again, from the messages, just the messages that I've had yesterday, too many of you are suffering in silence because you've been told you're the problem. You are not the problem. The systems and processes and everything else that are trying to silence us, the lack of research, the lack of funding, the lack of support, the lack of experts, the lack of information, all of that's the problem. The fact that I didn't even know adenomyosis was a thing until I saw it on my Instagram feed when all this pain started shows me no doctor had ever mentioned that. And then when they mentioned it at December, I'm like, well, I think I've got all of the symptoms. They're like, no, you definitely don't have that. Saw it on my Instagram feed. Literally saw this thing called adenomyosis, never even heard of it. And yet here I am. And it looks like I've had it for 12 years or more. And the ablation that they gave me has made it even worse. This is the stuff that so many of us are having to live with, and we're not putting up with it any more. So I'm going to leave you there. That's my rant for this morning. I do need to go and stop. I do need to go and rest. I do need to go and lay down. But please, like, share this. If you can comment on this post, share it on this post, because I know that LinkedIn are going to hide this as much as possible. And so please give it a comment, give it a share, send it to somebody in the message. Just do what we need to do with it, right? Not for me, but because of every single other person that needs to know that we're not being shamed or silenced anymore. So please, please, please keep the conversations going, keep it sharing. Thank you for those of you that have shown, that have put messages. Thank you very much, very much. Appreciate you all, but let's just keep going. Thank you. Have an amazing day. I'm gonna probably go and cry in a corner. See you all soon. Bye, bye, bye.